What's up, nerds? My name's Cory Bergeron, and you are watching Cory Bergeron Recordings, and we are back with another episode of In the Mix, a video series where I open up the Pro Tools session of a song that I have worked on, and I go through it and I point out things that I think are interesting in hopes that you learn something. So, for today's episode, I have in front of me the song Other People by my band, Locket. This was released through Fearless Records about a month ago, and it is a very emotionally heavy tune. The way this thing works is you have to listen to the song and then come back to this video so you have the context of knowing the song, and then I'll go through and start pointing out details. So with that being said, I have a link at the top of the description to the song, and I need you to go listen to it, check it out, and then come back to this video. So please go do that, listen to the song, come back to this video. Go. Sorry for ruining your day. I know it is, as I mentioned, an emotionally heavy song. So let's jump into the Pro Tools session. I have it open in front of me here. I'm going to give you a quick overview, and then I'm going to start jumping into specifics. So as you can see, we have the tempo at the top. You can see that it changes. I will talk about that in a second. We have our drums down here. Drums are red. We have our shakers. All our aux percussion in blue, bass in yellow, rhythm guitars in red. Acoustic guitars in orange, and then all our kind of lead guitars and rhythm guitars down here in the blue and green. These vocals are generally pink for some reason, not all of them are. Vocal effects, and then we have our masters, and then we have a bunch of ambience, because if you're familiar with the song, you know that there are a bunch of kind of little noises and stuff, and I will definitely touch on that. Let's go back to the tempo here, because I think this is something interesting that I have done before with many projects, including Locket, but I haven't had the chance to discuss it in the mix video. So, as you can see, the song starts at 183, and it continues that way up until this heavy part, which is the first kind of explosive heavy part of the song, and it bumps up only 2 BPM. It only goes to 185, which is not a big difference. The intention there is to just kind of add some energy and really kind of drive the song forward, and it only happens for such a short period of time, and then it goes back to 183. So it kind of gives you that live feeling like you're going into the heavy part and you start speeding up, but once it cools back down and goes into verse 2, it goes back to the original tempo. Fun little production trick. The same thing happens over here in the chorus, and the reason for that is because we wanted, there's a vocal line that punches there that I'll show you in just a second, and we wanted to kind of just drag it out a little bit, just for 2 bars. Again, small difference in tempo, but it just creates a little bit of an energy change that kind of gives it this live feeling. So check it out. I'm going to play it from here. Very little difference, but it's those little things that make a big difference in the grand scheme of things. So then, coming out of the guitar solo, which I have labeled as Corgon, which I'll get into in a little bit, we jump back down to the verse tempo. And then even more than that, towards the end we drop off 5 more beats per minute, and just on the outro here. So we have this. Again, a little difference, but it kind of just relaxes everything a little bit. All of these tempo changes were made with the goal of kind of giving it a more live feel, as if we were playing the track and we would speed up and slow down as the song kind of, goes from the start to the end. That is why we made those decisions, and I think they are very effective. It's something I like to do, and I believe actually the first time I've ever attempted this was at the end of Summer Sickness off the Hiding Games EP, towards the end. If you listen to like the last chorus, it just speeds up a little bit, and it adds like such a cool energy to the track. So that's that. That's why there isn't a fixed tempo. We have multiple tempo changes. Okay. So let's move on down into the drums here. The drums were recorded in a large live room. I've kind of discussed this at length in the Out of Sight in the Mix video, which I will leave linked somewhere. And so, big room, Ludwig drum kit, Zildjian K-Custom cymbals, and good performance kind of thing. So let me just solo this little heavy part here so you can hear how hard these drums are being hit. Let's check it out. When you have a good drummer, it makes good drum sounds. It's as simple as that. I'm not going to talk too much more about the drums, actual drum kit, because I think the highlight on this track is a lot of the aux percussion. So let's kind of keep moving forward, because we did some creative and interesting things that are unique to this track. So in the second verse area, we've added bells, we've added claves, kabasa, and shaker. I'm laughing because I'm laughing at all the ways I titled those tracks. So in the second verse, let me just solo the drums and all the aux percussion just so you can kind of get a feel for what's going on. So I've touched on this stuff before in the out of sight video, just kind of adding aux percussion to enhance the groove and add kind of different rhythms within it. And that's exactly what the purpose of that is. And then with the different elements, the shakers, the bells, the claves, you have different sounds that kind of just create its own little rhythmic world. And it's a really good way to add an arrangement lift to a part to introduce something that wasn't there beforehand. And then you can even enhance that or take it one step further by adding more elements as the part goes on. So it kind of has this forward momentum. It's always pushing the song forward, which is cool. And I mean, we're all just big fans of cool little aux percussion. So let's keep moving forward. We're still talking aux percussion. This is a little different. We recorded the drums in that large live room, in that church there. And after we were recording the drums, we decided we want to do like these big hall tom. That's the word I used to describe them. But just these big tom hits, just to kind of add that vibe to the track. So we set up 3 different floor toms. And I believe it was myself, Mr. Joey, and Travis, maybe JJ as well. Maybe there's 4 floor toms. And we all were hitting these floor toms at the exact same time with just a room mic that I had compressed to hell and back. And we layered that up 4 times. Without saying much more, check out just these hall toms. Let me solo these guys up here. Okay, so what's really interesting about that is, again, that's like 4 people hitting toms. When you hear like ducka, ducka on the rims, it's different people doing it. One person would hit it the first 2 times, and one person would hit it the other 2 times. And then when you have this thing going down, again, that's 3 different people hitting it, da 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 da. Why? No real reason other than just kind of having fun recording. But yeah, you can hear that there's tons of compression on it. Things start kind of crapping out a little bit, which is lovely. Adds a cool little energy. So all together we have... And yeah, that's the hall tom. So let's move forward to the bass. And the way I always approach bass is with kind of like a split bass. I believe that's the term. Approach, meaning that you record a DI, you record the amp, and then you take all the high end out of the DI, just leave the low end, all you want is the low end of the DI, and then you have just the top end of the bass guitar to kind of give you that grit and definition, and you put the 2 sounds together and it sounds like a full bass guitar. So let's go through. This is the DI. Yeah, it doesn't sound like super, I mean, it sounds like a DI with all the top cut off. And that's, actually, this is made out of plugins, but that's the bass top. So together. And then the reason why I have 3 tracks here is because in the choruses I'm going even more distorted. And that is basically the bass guitar. There isn't too much more than that. This is usually how I approach it. If you've seen the other In the Mix videos, you know that this is kind of the way I like to do things. Bass guitar, not too much to it. Moving forward, we have the rhythm guitars in red here. Basically, we track the guitars in a room, had the guitar player tracking the guitar live in the live room with a room mic to add some feedback and some noise in between all the notes and just kind of create a live feel out of it because we want it to be very energetic. It wouldn't be a Cory Bergeron recording if there wasn't stereo acoustic guitars on all the large rhythm parts. Tucked in there just to kind of add a little bit of articulation. Okay, this is where the guitars get cool. This is the kind of things that I want to show in these videos because this is where we start breaking all the rules and you start to think a little different about me. So let's go back to this first heavy part here because there's a lot to comb through here. Chaotic, noisy, wall of guitars. How did we achieve it? Okay, so obviously we have the rhythm guitars here. Okay, not as chaotic as I want. So what I like to do is, or what I did in the moment is I had my Kemper there and I turned off the cab, which makes it so it sounds like an amp without a cab, which is just like a really fizzy sound. So we doubled up the rhythms with that sound, which sounds just like this. Stereo track of those. It sounds terrible by itself, but it's just there to kind of really fill in the top end and again add chaos. We're not done yet. Then we brought in octave guitars. Again, with a really bitey kind of broken tone. And then on top of that, we have even more. I believe this is kind of like a slide. Okay, so let's put them all together and see what we get. That's that. Bunch of noise, just a whole bunch of noise, different forms of it to add energy and chaos. And when you're kind of writing and recording at the same time, you're trying to get things down quickly, and then you accidentally lay down a slide part, you don't take it out, and then when you do mute it and send it bounce over, the band's like, yo, something sounds different, it doesn't sound the way it should, and you're like, oh, you actually wanted that slide part in there, okay. And then you leave it in there. So let's keep moving forward. There's a marker here called Corgon. Corgon. What is Corgon? I know my band's laughing if they're watching this right now. Basically, this is where like the guitar lead part is. That sounds like this. And obviously, it's an absolutely punishing rhythm section, and we recorded like a really chaotic and noisy and broken sounding lead on top of it. And I joke that it sounds like, you know, like Godzilla destroying a village, and then we turn my name Cory into Corgon, and that's what we call this part. So this is Corgon. This is the monster Corgon. Oh, geez, here we are. So let me tell you how we achieved it. We recorded this guitar part. I had this old Roberts preamp from the 1950s that is just like it sounds terrible. It almost sounds like a guitar amp. When you turn it up, it just gets so distorted. It's totally not usable in any other context. So I had a room mic plugged into the Roberts preamp, and that was the only mic I used on the lead guitar. No close mic or anything like that. And this is what that sounds like. So you get the idea. Obviously I threw a delay on afterwards, but it's just super crunchy, super noisy, and it's kind of beautifully chaotic. Underneath that we have so we'll call that music, but yeah, as you can tell, it is appropriately labeled guitar noise. It's just there to add chaos intensity. We added our no cabs as well, so this is playing the rhythm section with just a really fizzy guitar tone. And all together, just the guitars. You get the idea. Obviously we wanted it to be chaotic and just like absolutely insane and really contrast the clean, beautiful parts of the song to the absolute destruction that is Core Gone. Okay, moving forward. One thing that means something to me and probably not much to anyone else is that these two rhythm guitar parts, the clean guitar parts, we have Brad and Corey here, we tracked as... Brad tracked his part, and then I tracked my part, and they're, for the most part, just kind of one takes all the way through the song. Which I think is pretty cool. They are definitely not the perfect takes, but there's a lot of charm and personality in them. And if you've learned anything from these videos, I'm a fan of personality. So that is good. Keep moving forward. In the mixing stage, when the floor tom came in, or when the drums come in, after we tracked the song, the band was gone and I was mixing it, I just felt like there was nothing like tickling the top in there in the arrangement. So I thought of some kind of... Basically, I was just trying to create a sound there that would work within there. So just out of plugins, I made this. And that comes in like this. It comes back in the second verse. There's not too much to it. It was just kind of to get a successful mix, you need good arrangement. It's near impossible to mix something if the arrangement doesn't make sense. And in that case, I was struggling to make it sound the way I wanted the mix. So I went ahead and just kind of created something out of nothing to remedy the situation, and it's all good. And now I gave that sound to JJ. He puts it on his little SPD sample pad, and when we play live, he plays it from a sample pad, which is pretty crazy to think that I made a sound on a computer and JJ's playing it with another computer live. Keep moving forward. Okay, so we have the vocals. Nothing too crazy about the vocals, except for the fact that the second verse was recorded at a completely different time than the first verse was recorded, and in a completely different spot with a completely different microphone and gear. So the first verse was probably recorded, or was recorded at Pebble Studios with a Neumann TLM 103 going into a Neve preamp and probably into a distressor. Okay, so that's what the first verse was recorded with, which is a good vocal chain. The second verse was recorded with a 7B going into a Scarlett 2i2 in Travis's basement. And something that was interesting to me that I haven't really encountered before was I was trying to get the EQ and everything, just the vocal tone to sound the same between the first verse and the second verse. And I did my best. So with that being said, let me play the second verse to you without a plugin so you can hear where the vocal tone started. Again, 7B into a Scarlett. 7B, generally a dark mic. Scarlett is just like a cheap off the shelf of any music store interface. And this is what it came out as.
What we are, I can't explain to anyone. Infected with lust, infatuated with our love.
So obviously Brad can sing, so it still sounds musical, sounds good, but it definitely needed a lot of work in post to kind of bring it to where it needed to be. And when you're working on music, you're not always in an ideal situation, so what's better, not making the music and waiting for the ideal situation, or just making it happen and doing the best with what you have? My vote's number 2, always. For the vocals in the chorus, we did the same old that we always do, which is kind of 3 main vocals, 1 going up the center, and then 2 left, right, just to kind of create that width, make the chorus sound like a chorus. We also added low octaves and high falsettos that are in the same octave, but they're just in the head voice, and then harmonies, and JJ actually sang on the chorus a little bit, so all together.
Say nothing if you can't say something to save us. Those 3 words. words have only built a wall from where we fall. So save all your breath. Say nothing. Say nothing. Say nothing at all.
Sounds good. I actually have the backing vocals up a little higher than I probably would in most contexts, but we're trying to make it sound big, noisy, chaotic. There's a wall of guitars that he has to break through, and it's okay if it almost sounds a little like chanty in a way. So that is the chorus vocal. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to touch on is the ambience, okay? Just the sounds that, I don't know how many other people do this, but you just kind of put in the track to just create an atmosphere, I guess. So let's go down here. I'm going to go through the tracks real quick, and then I'll talk about how they were made and all that. So this is called track 31, Movie 02. I have like a sound library that is like 6,000 sounds that is meant to create Foley within like films. And a lot of times I'll just like search up something and put it in a song. So I don't know what the sound is. It's kind of like a nighttime ambience, I would imagine. On top of that, I made this sound. And without any plugins, sounds like this. I honestly don't remember too much about how I went about creating these. Brad sent me a text message and said, hey, is there any way we can create some kind of ambience at the start of the song, just to kind of really like set the tone? And I sent him back this, and he was like, yeah, that's perfect. But it looks as though I probably plugged my guitar directly into the interface. I'm using this S-Gear factory default setting just to make it sound like a guitar amp. And then I probably had a delay pedal or something in the chain to just make something loop. And that's how I made that sound. And then I made another sound on the other side. And it was just, that definitely is reversed. There's no doubt that that is not reversed. But the two sounds together, or actually all three sounds together. So that's the ambience. Now we have these vocal samples down here.
It's so dark we can feel it. It's so quiet we will spoil it. No one to welcome us.
I am such a huge fan of just panning something for like one sample the opposite direction for no reason, just to make it sound like a little glitched.
It's so quiet we will spoil it.
Lots of fun. I can't really touch too much on these samples because this is more of Brad's domain, but it's just finding an interesting way to add another angle and depth to the story that he's already kind of telling. So that's where I'll leave that. If you're familiar with the song and you hear this ambience at the start, it instantly, you recognize it, puts you in that kind of world. And I actually have the ambience going all the way through up until the heavy part. Okay, cool. So that was a brief overview of the song Other People, just kind of jumping in because I think there's a lot of little interesting, quirky, charming, unique things that were done in this session that you don't get to see every single day. And for anyone that was curious or anyone that's just kind of interested in seeing how someone approaches producing something, I think there is something of value to kind of take away from that and do with that knowledge what you will. So thank you so much for watching. I have a lot of fun doing these videos, and that's that. If there's any other songs I've worked on that you want to see in the mix on, let me know. And as always, subscribe, like, drop a comment, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.